18 years old, and she thinks she belongs here. Staff Sergeant Kowalski shook his head as he watched the young woman approach the registration table. Her gear bag slung over one shoulder like she was heading to summer camp instead of the most demanding sniper training program in the military. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Quantico training grounds, where steam rose from coffee cups held by instructors who had seen countless recruits arrive with misplaced confidence. She can't be serious. The whispered comment came from Corporal Martinez, a veteran trainee who had already failed the advanced qualification twice. His companion, Torres, snorted quietly and adjusted his rifle case. Give her 2 hours before she's crying for a transfer back to basic clerical duties. The young woman seemed oblivious to their assessment as she presented her orders to the registration sergeant. Her name tag read Brennan, and her uniform was pristine in a way that immediately marked her as someone who had never crawled through actual mud or spent sleepless nights in a fighting position. The registration sergeant glanced at her paperwork, then looked up with barely concealed skepticism. "Ma'am, you understand this is the Advanced Precision Marksman course. The failure rate here is 87% among experienced infantry soldiers." He paused, giving her an opportunity to reconsider. Even combat veterans with multiple deployments wash out in the first week. Brennan nodded without hesitation. "I understand, Sergeant." Her voice carried no uncertainty, no acknowledgement of the statistical reality he had just presented. The sergeant exchanged a meaningful look with Staff Sergeant Kowalski, who approached the table with the deliberate pace of someone preparing to save everyone involved a significant amount of wasted time. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've witnessed young people surprising everyone with hidden talents in your area. "Miss, I need you to understand something." Kowalski's tone carried the weight of 15 years training snipers, men who had proven themselves in combat before ever setting foot in his program. The shot requirements here start at 800 meters and go well beyond 2,000. We have Marines with confirmed kills who struggle to qualify. His eyes moved to her hands, noting the absence of calluses that would indicate extensive trigger time. "What's your longest confirmed shot?" 600 meters, she replied without embellishment or defensive explanation. The number hung in the air like a confession of inadequacy. Around the registration area, several experienced trainees had slowed their own check-in procedures to listen, their expressions ranging from amused to genuinely concerned for her well-being. 600. Kowalski repeated the distance, as if testing how ridiculous it sounded. The basic qualification here requires consistent hits at 1,200 meters before you even touch the advanced curriculum. He gestured toward the range complex visible in the distance, where targets were positioned at distances that reduced grown men to mathematical calculations and prayer. Most of these Marines have been shooting competitively since they were younger than you are now. Torres leaned closer to Martinez and whispered just loudly enough for others to hear. "This is going to be painful to watch." The two men had witnessed enough overconfident recruits to recognize the pattern. Arrival with unrealistic expectations, followed by rapid reality adjustment, usually culminating in voluntary withdrawal before the first week ended. The mountain air carried the distinctive crack of precision rifles from the active ranges, where current students were attempting qualifications that had already eliminated half their original class. Each shot represented months of preparation, years of experience, and the kind of technical knowledge that came from understanding ballistics, wind patterns, and equipment limitations at a level that separated professionals from enthusiasts. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time." Kowalski's voice softened slightly, taking on the tone of someone offering genuine guidance rather than institutional intimidation. "This program has broken men who survived multiple combat tours. The physical demands alone eliminate most candidates before we even discuss marksmanship standards. Are you certain you want to proceed with this registration?" Brennan met his gaze directly, her expression unchanged by his warnings or the skeptical audience that had gathered around the registration table. "Yes, Sergeant, I'm certain." The finality in her response settled over the group like dust after an explosion. Kowalski signed her paperwork with the mechanical precision of someone who had processed hundreds of similar requests, most of which would be reversed within days. He handed her a folder containing her barracks assignment, meal schedules, and the equipment list that would consume most recruits' first paycheck. Report to Range 7 at 0600 tomorrow. Bring everything on that equipment list and prepare for the initial assessment. His tone had shifted to purely professional, the warmth of concern replaced by institutional efficiency. The assessment will determine your baseline capabilities and identify areas requiring immediate attention before you attempt any advanced training. As Brennan walked toward the barracks complex, her departure was followed by a dozen pairs of eyes and the kind of silence that preceded either spectacular success or catastrophic failure. The morning's registration had concluded with the addition of one more statistic to Kowalski's mental database, a young woman whose confidence would either prove justified or provide another cautionary tale about the gap between civilian expectations and military reality. The barracks assignment placed Brennan in Building C with 7 other advanced course candidates, all of whom had arrived with the weathered confidence that came from years of competitive shooting and combat experience. Her bunk was positioned next to Sergeant First Class Davidson, a Special Forces veteran whose rifle case bore stickers from shooting competitions across 3 continents. She looks like she wandered in from a recruiting poster. Davidson's comment to his rack mate carried across the narrow space between bunks as Brennan unpacked her gear with methodical precision. His companion, a Marine sniper named Jackson who had been deployed to Afghanistan twice, glanced over and shook his head with the expression of someone witnessing an inevitable disaster. I give her until Wednesday before she realizes this isn't basic training. Jackson's prediction drew quiet chuckles from the other occupants, men whose own struggles with the program had taught them to recognize unrealistic expectations when they saw them. The advanced course had a reputation for breaking down even experienced marksmen, reducing them to fundamental shooting principles they thought they had mastered years earlier. Brennan continued organizing her equipment without acknowledging their assessment, laying out cleaning supplies and technical manuals with the same careful attention she had given her registration paperwork. Her movements carried none of the casual familiarity that marked veterans, no unconscious efficiency born from countless repetitions of the same tasks under field conditions. Davidson leaned back on his bunk and addressed her directly, his tone carrying the mixture of curiosity and condescension that older soldiers often used with obvious newcomers. So, Brennan, what unit are you coming from? Your paperwork said infantry, but I'm not seeing any deployment patches or unit insignia that would indicate actual field experience. The question hung in the air with the weight of professional evaluation. In the military hierarchy, credentials were worn openly and validated through shared experiences that created immediate bonds or highlighted obvious gaps in background. Brennan's uniform told a story of training facilities and stateside assignments, devoid of the indicators that would earn respect in this environment. I completed advanced individual training at Fort Benning 6 months ago. Her response provided the basic facts without elaboration or defensive justification. The timeline she provided immediately categorized her as someone whose military experience could be measured in months rather than years, whose understanding of precision shooting came from controlled training environments rather than operational necessity. 6 months. Jackson repeated the time frame, as if confirming he had heard correctly. The other bunks had fallen silent, their occupants listening to an exchange that would establish the social dynamics for the duration of the course. Most guys here have been shooting competitively for longer than you've been in the Army. Davidson sat up and leaned forward, his expression shifting to something approaching genuine concern mixed with professional obligation. Listen, no disrespect intended, but this program is designed for people who have already proven themselves under pressure. The instructors here assume you can consistently hit targets at distances where most soldiers would need spotting assistance just to see the target. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Staff Sergeant Kowalski, who entered the barracks with the purposeful stride of someone conducting official business. His presence immediately altered the atmosphere, conversations stopping as attention shifted to whatever announcement or instruction had brought him to their quarters. Tomorrow morning's assessment will begin with a diagnostic shooting exercise at 800 meters. Kowalski's announcement addressed the entire barracks, but his gaze lingered on Brennan as he continued. This is not a qualification attempt. It's designed to establish baseline capabilities and identify immediate training priorities for each candidate. He moved to the center of the barracks space, ensuring his words carried to every bunk. The diagnostic consists of 10 rounds from the prone position, no time limit, weather conditions permitting. Your performance will determine your initial training track and whether additional preparatory work is required before attempting advanced qualification standards. Davidson raised his hand slightly, drawing Kowalski's attention. Sergeant, what's the minimum standard for continuing with a regular curriculum? His question reflected the practical concern of someone who understood that military training programs often included mechanisms for redirecting candidates who demonstrated insufficient preparation. 7 out of 10 hits in the target area. Kowalski's response was delivered with the flat precision of someone stating established policy rather than negotiable expectations. Candidates scoring below that threshold will be transferred to remedial marksmanship training before returning to attempt the diagnostic again. The implications of his statement were immediately clear to everyone present. Remedial training meant extended time away from the advanced course, delayed graduation, and the professional embarrassment of requiring additional instruction in fundamental skills. For career soldiers, such setbacks could influence promotion opportunities and future assignment considerations. As Kowalski departed, the barracks atmosphere shifted to something approaching studious preparation. Equipment was rechecked, technical manuals were consulted, and conversations turned to wind estimation techniques and ballistic calculations. The diagnostic had transformed from tomorrow's activity into an immediate test of professional competence. Brennan continued her equipment preparation with the same methodical approach she had maintained throughout the evening, seemingly unaffected by the pressure that had settled over her fellow candidates. Her apparent calm in the face of technical challenges that concerned experienced marksmen only reinforced the prevailing opinion that she fundamentally misunderstood what she was attempting. Jackson returned to his equipment maintenance, but continued the earlier conversation in a lower tone that carried clearly in the confined space. Tomorrow's going to be educational for everyone involved. 800 meters with a cold barrel, and whatever wind conditions we get should separate the prepared from the optimistic pretty quickly. The pre-dawn darkness carried the crisp edge of mountain air as candidates assembled at range 7, their breath visible in small clouds that dissipated quickly in the dry atmosphere. Brennan arrived with her rifle case and shooting mat, taking a position at the end of the firing line where her presence drew continued scrutiny from instructors and fellow candidates alike. Staff Sergeant Kowalski moved along the line, conducting equipment inspections, his experienced eye cataloging the differences between professional-grade gear and standard-issue equipment. When he reached Brennan's position, his examination lingered on her rifle, a factory-standard M24 that showed minimal wear and no customizations that would indicate extensive use or personal familiarity. Standard barrel, factory trigger, no modifications. His observation was stated as fact rather than criticism, but the implications were clear to everyone within hearing distance. Most advanced marksmen developed preferences for specific equipment configurations based on experience with various shooting conditions and personal shooting characteristics. Davidson, positioned 3 spots to Brennan's left, had laid out a heavily modified rifle system that represented thousands of dollars in precision upgrades and hundreds of hours of load development work. His equipment spoke of serious competitive experience and the kind of technical knowledge that came from understanding how small mechanical differences affected performance at extreme distances. The morning light gradually revealed the target array at 800 meters, barely visible silhouettes that would challenge even experienced shooters under ideal conditions. The targets themselves were designed to standard military specifications, providing a scoring area that required precision rather than general accuracy to achieve qualifying hits. Wind flags positioned at intervals between the firing line and targets showed a consistent left-to-right breeze that would require compensation calculations for successful engagement. The meteorological conditions were well within normal parameters for the course, representing the kind of environmental factors that students would need to master for advancement to longer-distance shooting. Kowalski addressed the assembled candidates from the center of the firing line, his voice carrying clearly in the still morning air. The diagnostic begins in 15 minutes. You will fire 10 rounds from the prone position, no time restrictions, with spotting assistance available after the 5th round if requested. He gestured toward the target line, where range personnel had positioned spotting scopes to assist with target identification and impact assessment. The availability of spotting assistance was both a training aid and a subtle indicator of the difficulty level, acknowledging that 800 meters challenged visual capabilities even with magnified optics. Jackson leaned toward his shooting partner and spoke quietly enough that his words required attention to understand. Money says the kid doesn't even hit the target backing. His prediction reflected the common assumption that inexperienced shooters would struggle with basic target engagement at distances where small errors in technique became magnified into complete misses. The comment reached several other candidates who nodded in agreement, their own experience having taught them that long-range precision shooting required muscle memory and technical knowledge that could only be developed through extensive practice. The gap between theoretical understanding and practical application became increasingly apparent as distances increased beyond normal training ranges. Brennan completed her rifle setup with the methodical precision she had displayed since arrival, adjusting her shooting mat and checking her scope settings with movements that appeared practiced but lacked the unconscious efficiency of someone who had performed the same tasks countless times under various conditions. Her scope was set to a magnification level appropriate for the distance, and her shooting position appeared technically correct according to standard manual procedures. However, the other candidates could observe subtle indicators that suggested limited field experience, small details in equipment handling and position construction that marked her as someone whose knowledge came primarily from controlled training environments. Davidson finished his own preparation and glanced over at Brennan's position, noting her shooting stance and equipment configuration. To his shooting partner, he remarked quietly, "She's got the fundamentals right from what I can see, but fundamentals only get you so far when the pressure is real and the targets are small." The observation reflected a common understanding among experienced marksmen that technical knowledge and field performance often differed significantly. Classroom instruction could provide theoretical frameworks, but practical shooting under evaluation conditions revealed gaps in preparation that only experience could address. Kowalski began the final countdown, his voice cutting through the quiet conversations and equipment adjustments that had occupied the preparation period. "Shooters, you have 60 seconds to assume firing positions and prepare for the commencement of the diagnostic exercise." The firing line transformed into focused concentration as candidates settled into their shooting positions, adjusting for comfort and stability while making final scope and equipment checks. The morning had progressed to the point where lighting conditions were optimal for target identification, eliminating variables that might otherwise affect performance assessment. Brennan's position appeared stable and properly constructed according to manual specifications. Her rifle positioned for consistent shot placement and her body alignment, suggesting adequate understanding of basic marksmanship principles. The technical aspects of her setup drew no obvious criticism from observing instructors, though her movements lacked the smooth confidence that came from extensive repetition. The range fell silent except for the gentle rustling of wind flags and the occasional metallic click of safety mechanisms being engaged. 800 meters of open ground stretched between the firing line and targets that would determine each candidate's initial classification and training track within the advanced program. Load and make ready. Kowalski's command initiated the diagnostic exercise that would provide the first objective measurement of each candidate's capabilities under the structured evaluation conditions that defined military marksmanship training. The first shot echoed across the range with the distinctive crack of a precision rifle, followed immediately by the metallic ping of the target system registering an impact. Davidson had opened the diagnostic exercise with a center mass hit that drew approving nods from the observing instructors, his performance meeting the expected standard for someone with his documented background and competitive experience. Jackson followed with his first round. The report sharp in the morning air as his bullet found the scoring area with the kind of precision that reflected years of competitive shooting and multiple combat deployments. The early shots established a rhythm of competent marksmanship that validated the selection criteria used to admit candidates to the advanced program. When Brennan's turn arrived, the range fell into a more attentive silence. Her first shot broke with clean precision, the sound carrying clearly across the 800 meters to the target line, where range personnel monitored impact locations through high-powered spotting scopes. The pause before the target system's signal seemed longer than usual, creating a moment of suspended judgment. Hit! The range officer's call confirmed target impact, though without the immediate enthusiasm that had accompanied the previous shots. The location and quality of her hit remained unspecified, leaving observers to speculate about her actual performance based on the neutral tone of the official confirmation. Davidson glanced toward Brennan's position with an expression that mixed surprise with cautious reassessment. Getting on target was the minimum requirement, but the diagnostic demanded consistent accuracy rather than occasional success. His second shot followed quickly, another solid hit that reinforced his reputation and maintained his position as the benchmark performer for the exercise. The diagnostic continued with methodical precision as each candidate worked through their 10-round allocation, the morning air filling with the regular crack of rifle fire, punctuated by target confirmations that painted a picture of varying skill levels among the assembled marksmen. Some hits were announced with obvious satisfaction, others with the neutral professionalism that indicated marginal performance. Brennan's second shot produced another confirmed hit, drawing slightly more attention from instructors who had begun to notice a pattern developing. Her shooting pace was deliberate without being hesitant, suggesting comfort with the technical aspects of long-range engagement, even if her overall experience remained questionable. Jackson completed his string with 8 confirmed hits out of 10 attempts, a performance that placed him well above the minimum standard while remaining consistent with expectations for someone of his background. His shooting demonstrated the kind of reliable competence that military marksmanship training was designed to produce and evaluate. "This is interesting." The comment came from Master Sergeant Phillips, the senior instructor who had positioned himself behind the firing line to observe candidate performance and instructor evaluation techniques. His remark was directed toward Kowalski, but spoken loudly enough for nearby personnel to overhear. Phillips had spent 15 years training military marksmen and possessed the kind of experienced eye that could identify subtle indicators of shooting ability that escaped less experienced observers. His attention had clearly focused on Brennan's performance, though his assessment remained carefully neutral in accordance with evaluation protocols. Davidson finished his diagnostic with 9 hits out of 10 rounds, a score that exceeded qualification requirements while maintaining consistency with his documented competitive background. His performance provided a clear example of the kind of marksmanship capability the program expected from incoming candidates. As the diagnostic progressed toward completion, Brennan approached her final rounds with the same methodical approach she had maintained throughout the exercise. Her 7th shot produced another confirmed hit, followed by successful engagement of the 8th target in her sequence. The observers had grown notably quieter as her performance pattern became apparent. 8 successful engagements out of 8 attempts represented shooting that exceeded the minimum qualification standard and approached the level of performance typically associated with experienced competitive marksmen. Her 9th shot echoed across the range with the same clean report that had characterized her previous rounds, followed by the now familiar pause before target confirmation. The range officer's call of hit came with a slight inflection that suggested something beyond routine target engagement had occurred. Kowalski moved closer to the spotting scope position where range personnel were tracking impact locations and shot groupings for each candidate. His conversation with the range officer was conducted in tones too low for candidate observation, but his expression suggested information that warranted attention from senior instructional staff. Phillips joined the spotting scope consultation, his presence indicating that Brennan's performance had risen to a level requiring evaluation by the most experienced instructors available. The discussion among range personnel took on the character of professional assessment rather than routine score recording. When Brennan prepared for her final shot, the range had developed an atmosphere of focused attention that extended beyond normal diagnostic observation. Her shooting position remained technically sound. Her rifle handling continued to demonstrate basic competence, but her performance results were generating discussion among instructors whose experience provided context for evaluating marksmanship at this level. The 10th shot broke with the same precision that had characterized her previous 9 rounds, the sound carrying across 800 meters of mountain air to targets that had witnessed varying levels of marksmanship capability throughout the morning exercise. The pause before confirmation seemed longer, weighted with implications that extended beyond simple pass-fail evaluation. Hit, center mass. The range officer's confirmation carried additional detail that had not accompanied previous target calls, indicating performance that warranted specific notation rather than routine recording. The silence that followed his announcement stretched across the firing line like recognition of something unexpected had occurred. 10 for 10. Phillips spoke the score aloud, his tone carrying the kind of professional acknowledgement reserved for performance that exceeded standard expectations. The diagnostic exercise had concluded with results that would require reassessment of initial candidate evaluations and training track assignments. The post-exercise debrief took place in a classroom adjacent to Range 7, where candidates sat in metal folding chairs while instructors reviewed performance data and discussed individual training assignments. The atmosphere carried the tension that followed any evaluation, mixed with curiosity about score distributions and advancement decisions that would shape the remainder of their course experience. Kowalski stood at the front of the room with a clipboard containing diagnostic results, his expression maintaining the professional neutrality required for objective performance assessment. Behind him, a whiteboard displayed score ranges and corresponding training track assignments that would determine each candidate's immediate future within the program. The passing standard was 7 hits out of 10 rounds. His announcement addressed the fundamental question that occupied every candidate's attention, establishing the baseline that separated continuation from remedial training. Several candidates shifted in their chairs, calculating their own performance against the stated requirement. Davidson, 8 hits. Advanced track, standard progression. The announcement confirmed expectations based on his documented background and observable shooting competence. His assignment to the advanced track reflected performance consistent with program standards and previous competitive experience. Jackson, 8 hits. Advanced track, standard progression. The pattern continued with results that aligned with instructor expectations and candidate backgrounds. The advanced track represented the normal progression for students who demonstrated adequate preparation and technical competence. Martinez, 6 hits. Remedial marksmanship track, reassessment in 2 weeks. The announcement carried implications beyond simple score reporting, indicating extended training time and delayed progression that would affect career timelines and professional advancement opportunities. Martinez's expression reflected the disappointment of someone whose confidence had exceeded his actual capabilities. Phillips moved to stand beside Kowalski, his presence indicating that some aspect of the diagnostic results warranted senior instructor attention. The combination of instructors suggested either exceptional performance or unusual circumstances that required experienced evaluation and discussion. Torres, 7 hits. Advanced track, standard progression. The announcement placed him at the minimum qualification threshold, a position that carried both relief and recognition that improvement would be necessary for continued success in the program. As the score announcements continued, Brennan remained seated with the same composed attention she had maintained throughout her time at the facility. Her expression showed neither anxiety about her performance nor anticipation of exceptional recognition, suggesting either confidence in her shooting or genuine unfamiliarity with the significance of the evaluation. The classroom atmosphere had developed an undercurrent of curiosity about her results, based on the obvious attention her shooting had drawn from instructional staff during the exercise. Fellow candidates had observed the instructor consultation at the spotting scope position, indicating performance that exceeded routine evaluation protocols. Brennan Phillips stepped forward to deliver her score announcement personally, a departure from standard procedure that immediately focused attention on what would clearly be exceptional news. His tone carried the professional acknowledgement reserved for performance that warranted specific recognition. 10 hits out of 10 rounds. Perfect score. Advanced track with accelerated progression consideration. The announcement created a moment of absolute silence in the classroom, followed by the kind of subtle reaction that accompanied truly unexpected information in professional military environments. Davidson turned to look directly at Brennan, his expression mixing surprise with professional reassessment of someone he had categorically underestimated based on apparent experience levels. The perfect score represented shooting performance that exceeded his own results despite years of competitive experience and documented combat deployments. Jackson's reaction was more subtle but equally significant, a slow nod that acknowledged capability he had not anticipated based on their previous interactions and his evaluation of her background. His combat experience provided context for understanding how rare perfect diagnostic scores were among even experienced marksmen. Furthermore, Phillips continued his announcement with additional detail that elevated Brennan's performance beyond simple score considerations. Analysis of shot grouping indicates consistent center mass impacts, with a group measurement of 4.3 inches at 800 meters. The technical details of her shooting performance provided specific evidence of precision that extended beyond simple target engagement. A group measurement under 5 inches at 800 meters represented accuracy typically associated with precision rifle systems and shooters with extensive technical knowledge and practical experience. Kowalski added contextual information that emphasized the significance of her performance within the broader scope of program history. In 15 years of conducting this diagnostic exercise, only 12 candidates have achieved perfect scores. Miss Brennan's group measurement ranks among the top 3 performances in program records. The historical context transformed her results from exceptional to genuinely remarkable, placing her shooting performance in company with the most capable marksmen who had participated in the advanced program. The ranking among historical performances suggested natural ability that transcended normal training progression and experience accumulation. Martinez leaned toward Torres and whispered quietly enough to avoid instructor attention, but clearly enough for nearby candidates to overhear. How does someone with 6 months' experience shoot better than people who have been doing this for years? His question reflected the confusion that Brennan's performance had created among candidates whose own experience provided context for understanding marksmanship development. The question highlighted a fundamental disconnect between expected performance based on documented experience and actual demonstrated capability under evaluation conditions. Military training programs were designed around progressive skill development that correlated experience with performance, making exceptional results from inexperienced personnel particularly noteworthy. Phillips addressed the class with information about training track assignments and schedule modifications that would accommodate different performance levels and learning requirements. The advanced track would progress immediately to qualification attempts at longer distances, while remedial students would focus on fundamental skill development. For candidates assigned to accelerated progression, additional evaluation opportunities will be scheduled to assess readiness for advanced qualification standards. His announcement was directed generally to the class, but clearly referenced Brennan's unique situation and the potential for advancement beyond normal program timelines. The debrief concluded with administrative details about equipment requirements and schedule changes that would take effect immediately based on diagnostic results and training track assignments. As candidates prepare to leave, the atmosphere carried new awareness of capability distributions that differed significantly from initial expectations based on apparent experience and background credentials. The advanced track convened at range 12 the following morning, where targets were positioned at 1,200 meters and environmental conditions would test the technical knowledge that separated competent marksmen from precision shooters. The extended distance transformed small errors in calculation or technique into complete misses, demanding accuracy that challenged even experienced competitive shooters. Davidson arrived early to establish his shooting position and conduct equipment checks that would account for the increased distance and corresponding ballistic considerations. His rifle system represented thousands of hours of load development work and equipment modification designed specifically for extreme-range precision shooting. "She got lucky yesterday." His comment to Jackson reflected the common assumption that exceptional performance under evaluation conditions sometimes resulted from favorable circumstances rather than consistent capability. The 1,200-meter qualification would provide more definitive assessment of actual shooting ability. Jackson nodded in agreement while unpacking his own precision equipment, gear that represented years of competitive shooting and the kind of technical knowledge that came from understanding ballistic performance at distances where atmospheric conditions became critical factors. His experience suggested that initial diagnostic success often failed to translate to longer-range performance. The morning air carried a crosswind that would complicate ballistic calculations and require compensation techniques that distinguished advanced marksmen from shooters whose experience was limited to controlled training environments. Wind estimation at 1,200 meters demanded practical knowledge that could only be developed through extensive shooting under varying conditions. Brennan arrived with the same methodical approach that had characterized her previous range activities, though her equipment remained notably standard compared to the heavily modified systems that other candidates had assembled for long-range precision work. Her rifle showed no evidence of the customization that typically accompanied serious long-range shooting. Phillips positioned himself at the instructor station where spotting scopes and ballistic computers provided the technical support necessary for advanced-level training and evaluation. His presence indicated that the 1,200-meter qualification carried significant weight in determining candidate progression and final program outcomes. The target array at 1,200 meters appeared as barely visible dots that challenged visual identification even with magnified optics. Successful engagement would require precise calculation of ballistic trajectory, wind compensation, and equipment settings that accounted for atmospheric conditions and range-specific environmental factors. Kowalski addressed the assembled candidates with information about qualification standards and evaluation criteria that would determine advancement to the final phase of training. The 1,200 meters standard required 8 hits out of 10 rounds, a performance level that eliminated approximately 60% of candidates who reached this stage. Ms. Brennan, based on your diagnostic performance, you have the option to attempt the 1,500-meter qualification today instead of the standard 1,200-meter requirement. Phillips offered accelerated progression that acknowledged her exceptional initial results while providing opportunity for advanced evaluation. The announcement created immediate attention from other candidates who recognized the significance of skipping intermediate qualification levels. The 1,500-meter standard was typically reserved for candidates who had demonstrated consistent performance at shorter distances over extended training periods. 1,500 meters. Davidson repeated the distance with the tone of someone confirming he had heard correctly. His own progression through the program had required weeks of preparation before attempting distances beyond 1,200 meters, making the accelerated timeline particularly noteworthy. Jackson's expression reflected similar surprise, mixed with skepticism about the wisdom of attempting advanced qualifications without intermediate preparation and experience. His competitive background provided context for understanding how difficult long-range precision became as distances increased beyond normal training parameters. I'll take the 1500-meter option. Brennan's response carried no hesitation or acknowledgement of the technical challenges that the extended distance would present. Her acceptance of accelerated progression suggested either confidence in her capabilities or fundamental misunderstanding of the difficulty increase involved. The decision established a new dynamic on the range, as attention shifted from routine qualification attempts to observation of someone attempting to validate exceptional ability under increasingly demanding conditions. The 1500-meter target represented shooting that challenged the capabilities of experienced precision marksmen. Phillips made radio contact with range personnel to coordinate target placement and environmental monitoring for the extended distance qualification. The additional range required verification of safety boundaries and coordination with other training activities that might be affected by long-range shooting operations. While technical preparations proceeded, other candidates began their 1200-meter qualifications with a deliberate pace that characterized precision shooting at distances where small errors became magnified into significant misses. The crack of rifle fire echoed across the range as each marksman worked through their qualification attempts. Davidson's first shot at 1200 meters resulted in a confirmed hit, though the pause before target confirmation suggested placement that met qualification standards without achieving the center mass accuracy he had demonstrated at shorter distances. The increased distance was clearly affecting precision levels, even among experienced shooters. Jackson followed with his own qualification attempt, his first round producing a hit that validated his preparation and technical knowledge while demonstrating the consistency required for advancement through the program. The successful engagement represented competent marksmanship at a level that many military personnel never achieved. At the 1500-meter target line, range personnel completed placement verification and environmental monitoring that would support Brennan's advanced qualification attempt. The extended distance required additional safety considerations and technical support that emphasized the significance of what she was attempting. The 1500-meter target appeared as little more than a visual reference point, even with magnified optics, demanding calculation accuracy and technical precision that eliminated all but the most capable precision shooters. Atmospheric conditions became critical factors that could affect bullet trajectory in ways that required advanced understanding of external ballistics. Kowalski approached Brennan's shooting position with final instructions and safety reminders that emphasized the technical complexity of long-range precision shooting. His tone carried professional respect, mixed with concern about the challenges she would face attempting qualification at a distance that challenged experienced marksmen. This is significantly more difficult than yesterday's diagnostic. Environmental factors become much more critical at 1500 meters, and small errors in calculation or technique will result in complete misses. His warning acknowledged her demonstrated capability while emphasizing the increased technical demands she would encounter. The 1500-meter setup required additional time for range clearance and safety verification, during which other candidates completed their 1200-meter qualifications with varying degrees of success. Davidson managed 7 hits out of 10 attempts, falling 1 round short of the advancement standard and requiring remedial training before re-attempting qualification. Jackson achieved the required 8 hits, though his group measurement indicated shooting that met standards without approaching the precision levels that distinguished exceptional marksmen from competent performers. His qualification represented solid achievement, while highlighting the difficulty progression that accompanied increased distances. Phillips returned from the target line with environmental data that would affect ballistic calculations at 1500 meters. Wind speed had increased to 8 miles per hour with variable direction. Temperature had risen 3 degrees since morning, and atmospheric pressure indicated conditions that would influence bullet trajectory in measurable ways. Miss Brennan, current conditions require compensation for a 7-mile-per-hour crosswind component and approximately 2 inches of bullet drop beyond standard ballistic tables. Phillips provided technical information that emphasized the calculation complexity required for successful long-range engagement under real-world conditions. The environmental briefing highlighted the difference between controlled shooting and field conditions where atmospheric factors required constant assessment and adjustment. 1,500-meter precision demanded understanding of external ballistics that extended well beyond basic marksmanship training and into advanced technical knowledge. Martinez, who had been reassigned to remedial training after his diagnostic performance, remained at the range as an observer rather than participant. His presence provided perspective on the gap between confidence and capability, having experienced firsthand how quickly advanced training could exceed preparation levels. "She's going to learn what the rest of us already know." His comment to Torres reflected the assumption that Brennan's initial success would not translate to performance under increasingly demanding conditions. The 1,500-meter qualification had eliminated numerous experienced candidates whose confidence had exceeded their actual capabilities. Torres nodded agreement while observing the technical preparations required for extended-range shooting. The complexity of equipment setup and environmental calculation provided visible evidence of why long-range precision shooting required extensive training and experience that could not be acquired through brief exposure or natural talent alone. Kowalski completed his consultation with Phillips regarding safety protocols and evaluation criteria for the 1,500-meter qualification. The extended distance required modified procedures and additional safety considerations that emphasize the advanced nature of what Brennan was attempting. Standard qualification requires 8 hits out of 10 rounds with no minimum group requirement. However, given the accelerated progression, we'll be evaluating overall performance for potential advancement to the final qualification phase. His explanation established evaluation criteria that extended beyond simple pass-fail assessment. The final qualification phase represented the ultimate test within the advanced program, typically reserved for candidates who had demonstrated consistent excellence throughout the progression of distances and conditions. Access to final qualification was limited to fewer than 10% of program participants. Brennan completed her rifle setup with the same methodical approach that had characterized her previous range activities, though the increased distance required additional scope adjustments and equipment considerations that tested technical knowledge beyond basic marksmanship skills. Her movements remained confident despite the complexity of the task ahead. Davidson and Jackson positioned themselves where they could observe her attempt while conducting their own equipment maintenance and administrative tasks. Their conversation continued the theme of professional skepticism mixed with curiosity about how someone with limited documented experience would perform under advanced evaluation conditions. The ballistic calculations alone should tell the story. Jackson's observation reflected understanding of the technical knowledge required for 1,500-meter precision shooting. Accurate calculation of trajectory, wind compensation, and environmental factors required education and experience that typically accumulated over years of dedicated practice. Phillips took position at the primary spotting scope where he could observe impact locations and provide immediate feedback about shot placement. His experience with thousands of long-range qualification attempts provided context for evaluating performance at a level that challenged even experienced competitive shooters. The 1,500-meter target remained barely visible as a reference point despite magnified optics that revealed detail sufficient for precision aiming. Successful engagement would require shot placement accuracy that eliminated margin for error in calculation or technique, demanding performance that validated advanced training and exceptional capability. Range personnel completed final safety checks and communication protocols that would support the extended distance qualification attempt. The additional precautions reflected both the technical complexity and safety considerations that accompanied shooting at distances where projectile energy and trajectory extended well beyond normal training parameters. Atmospheric conditions remained stable with a crosswind component that would require compensation calculations and shooting technique adjustments. The environmental factors were well within normal parameters for advanced qualification, but represented challenges that had defeated numerous candidates whose preparation had proven insufficient. Other range activities suspended operations to accommodate the safety requirements for 1,500-meter shooting, creating an environment where Brennan's attempt would receive undivided attention from instructional staff and observing candidates. The focused attention emphasized the significance of what she was attempting within the context of program standards. Kowalski made final radio contact with range control to verify safety boundaries and coordinate with other training activities that might be affected by long-range shooting operations. The coordination requirements reflected the extended safety considerations that accompanied precision shooting at distances that challenged normal range operations. The qualification area fell silent except for the gentle movement of wind flags that provided visual reference for atmospheric conditions affecting ballistic performance. 1,500 meters of open ground stretched between Brennan's shooting position and a target that would determine whether her initial success represented exceptional ability or fortunate circumstances. Miss Brennan, range is clear for 1,500-meter qualification. Phillips announced the commencement authorization that would begin the most challenging evaluation she had yet attempted. 10 rounds to demonstrate capability that would validate accelerated progression through the most demanding precision shooting program in military training. Brennan settled into her shooting position with deliberate precision, adjusting her rifle rest and scope settings for the 1,500-meter engagement that would either validate her exceptional diagnostic performance or reveal the limitations that experienced marksmen expected to observe. The extended distance required calculation accuracy that left no margin for error in technique or environmental assessment. Her first shot preparation involved scope adjustment and environmental calculation that appeared methodical rather than instinctive, suggesting technical knowledge that had been learned rather than developed through extensive field experience. The process took longer than typical for experienced long-range shooters, but demonstrated systematic approach to the complex variables involved. Phillips observed through the primary spotting scope as Brennan made final adjustments to her shooting position and rifle alignment. His experienced eye cataloged details of her technique and equipment handling that would provide indicators of her actual preparation level for this advanced qualification attempt. The first shot broke with clean precision, the report echoing across 1,500 meters of mountain terrain before reaching the target area, where impact detection required magnified observation and careful analysis. The pause before confirmation stretched longer than previous qualifications, emphasizing the difficulty of target engagement at this extended distance. Hit, lower left quadrant. Phillips called the impact location with professional precision that provided specific feedback about shot placement relative to optimal scoring areas. The hit confirmed her ability to engage the target, but indicated performance that would require improvement for advancement to final qualification standards. Davidson leaned toward Jackson with an expression that mixed acknowledgement of her capability with validation of his expectations about the challenges she would face at extended distances. She's on target, but not center mass. 1,500 meters is showing the difference between luck and skill. The observation reflected understanding that long-range precision shooting revealed small technical deficiencies that became magnified into measurable performance differences. Center mass accuracy at 1,500 meters required technical knowledge and practical experience that distinguished advanced marksmen from shooters with basic competence. Brennan's second shot followed after a pause for scope adjustment and environmental reassessment that suggested learning and adaptation rather than predetermined calculation. Her approach appeared systematic, but less fluid than the unconscious competence displayed by shooters with extensive long-range experience. Hit, center mass. Phillips announced improvement in shot placement that indicated successful adjustment for environmental conditions and range-specific factors. The center mass impact represented precision that met advanced qualification standards while demonstrating technical adaptability under evaluation conditions. Jackson's expression shifted to reflect recognition that her performance was exceeding his expectations despite apparent limitations in experience and equipment sophistication. 2 for 2 with improvement in precision suggested capability that transcended normal correlation between experience and performance. The third shot maintained a pattern of systematic preparation followed by precise execution, though her shooting pace remained deliberate rather than displaying the smooth rhythm characteristic of shooters with extensive competition experience. Her methodical approach appeared to compensate for limited field experience through careful attention to technical details. Hit. Upper center. The impact location continued the trend of accurate target engagement with shot placement that indicated understanding of ballistic principles and environmental compensation. Her group development suggested consistency that exceeded random success and approached the reliability required for advanced qualification. Phillips made notes on his evaluation clipboard while maintaining observation through the spotting scope. His documentation would provide official record of performance that could support advancement decisions or identify areas requiring additional training before progression to final qualification standards. Martinez watched from the observation area with growing recognition that his initial assessment of Brennan's capabilities had been fundamentally incorrect. 3 consecutive hits at 1,500 meters represented shooting that exceeded his own qualification performance at shorter distances, forcing reassessment of assumptions about experience and capability correlation. Torres shared similar surprise at performance levels that challenged his understanding of skill development progression. His own struggles with 1,200-meter qualification provided context for recognizing the difficulty of what Brennan was accomplishing with apparent technical competence despite limited documented experience. The fourth shot continued her pattern of systematic preparation and precise execution, with environmental assessment and scope adjustment that suggested growing familiarity with long-range shooting requirements. Her adaptation to the technical demands appeared to accelerate as the qualification progressed. Hit. Center mass. Phillips confirmed another center mass impact that reinforced the pattern of accurate shooting with consistent precision. 4 consecutive hits represented qualification performance that exceeded minimum standards while approaching excellence levels typically associated with experienced competitive marksmen. Kowalski moved closer to the spotting scope position where Phillips was documenting shot placement and group development. The consultation between senior instructors suggested performance that warranted evaluation by the most experienced personnel available for assessment and advancement recommendation. The 5th shot marked the halfway point in her qualification attempt, representing transition from initial assessment to sustained performance evaluation that would determine final qualification results. Her shooting rhythm had developed consistency that suggested comfort with the technical demands despite the challenging distance and environmental conditions. Hit. Center mass. The confirmation extended her perfect record to 5 consecutive hits with shot placement that met advanced qualification standards. The group development indicated precision that exceeded normal expectations for shooters attempting 1,500-meter qualification without extensive preparation at intermediate distances. Davidson's expression reflected growing recognition that Brennan's performance represented capability that transcended normal training progression and experience accumulation. 5 perfect hits at 1,500 meters demanded technical knowledge and practical skill that challenged his assumptions about preparation requirements for advanced marksmanship. The remaining 5 shots would determine whether her initial success represented sustainable capability or performance that would deteriorate under the pressure of sustained evaluation. The second half of qualification attempts typically revealed technical limitations and psychological factors that distinguished exceptional marksmen from competent performers. Phillips continued his detailed observation and documentation while coordinating with range personnel who were monitoring safety requirements and environmental conditions that could affect the remaining qualification attempts. The extended evaluation required sustained attention from multiple instructors and support staff. The 6th shot maintained Brennan's pattern of methodical preparation and precise execution, though environmental conditions had shifted slightly with increased wind speed that would test her ability to adapt calculations and maintain accuracy under changing atmospheric factors. The crosswind component had increased to 9 miles per hour with variable direction patterns. Hit. Center mass. Phillips confirmed another perfect impact that extended her qualification record to 6 consecutive hits with precision that exceeded normal expectations for 1,500-meter shooting. Her adaptation to changing environmental conditions suggested technical understanding that transcended basic training and approached advanced expertise. Jackson turned to Davidson with an expression that reflected fundamental reassessment of everything he had assumed about Brennan's capabilities and preparation level. 6 perfect hits at 1,500 meters with changing wind conditions represented shooting that exceeded his own competitive performance despite years of dedicated practice and equipment development. This doesn't make sense. Davidson's comment reflected the confusion that exceptional performance created when it exceeded normal correlation between documented experience and demonstrated capability. His own qualification struggles at this distance provided context for recognizing the extraordinary nature of what they were witnessing. The 7th shot required additional scope adjustment as wind patterns continued to shift in ways that would challenge even experienced long-range shooters' ability to maintain consistent accuracy. Brennan's environmental assessment appeared systematic rather than instinctive, suggesting technical knowledge that had been acquired through study rather than developed through extensive field experience. Hit. Center mass. The confirmation maintained her perfect record while demonstrating adaptation to environmental factors that had affected other candidates' performance throughout the morning. Her consistency under changing conditions suggested capability that extended beyond fortunate circumstances or favorable shooting conditions. Phillips coordinated with range personnel regarding environmental monitoring and safety considerations for the remaining qualification attempts. The sustained perfect performance was generating discussion among instructional staff about advancement recommendations and potential progression to evaluations that exceeded normal program standards. Martinez observed from the sideline with growing recognition that his dismissive assessment of Brennan's potential had been completely incorrect. 7 consecutive center mass hits at 1,500 meters represented precision shooting that exceeded anything he had witnessed during his time in the program, forcing complete recalibration of his assumptions about capability indicators. Torres shared similar amazement at performance levels that challenged his understanding of marksmanship development and training progression. His own experiences with qualification attempts provided context for recognizing that what Brennan was accomplishing represented exceptional ability rather than standard achievement within the program. The 8th shot preparation involved careful wind assessment and scope adjustment that reflected continued adaptation to changing environmental conditions. The crosswind had developed gusty characteristics that required constant evaluation and compensation calculation, testing technical knowledge that distinguished advanced marksmen from basic shooters. Hit. Center mass. Phillips announced another perfect impact that maintained her qualification record at unprecedented levels for 1,500-meter shooting. 8 consecutive center mass hits represented performance that approached the theoretical maximum for precision shooting under field conditions with standard equipment. Kowalski moved to coordinate with Phillips regarding documentation and evaluation procedures for performance that exceeded normal program parameters. The sustained excellence was generating discussion about advancement opportunities that bypassed standard progression requirements and moved directly to final qualification standards. The conversation between senior instructors indicated recognition that exceptional performance sometimes required modification of standard evaluation protocols to provide appropriate challenge levels and advancement opportunities. Her shooting was exceeding program design parameters in ways that demanded individualized assessment and training recommendations. Davidson watched the instructor consultation with recognition that Brennan's performance was generating the kind of attention reserved for truly exceptional achievements within military training environments. His competitive experience provided context for understanding how rare sustained perfection was at distances that challenged experienced marksmen. The ninth shot required sustained concentration as environmental conditions continued to present variables that tested technical knowledge and practical shooting ability. Wind patterns had developed complexity that demanded advanced understanding of external ballistics and compensation techniques that exceeded basic training curriculum. Hit, center mass. The confirmation extended her perfect record to 9 consecutive hits with precision that validated exceptional ability under increasingly challenging conditions. The sustained accuracy represented shooting that exceeded normal qualification standards and approached levels associated with competitive champions and military specialists. Phillips completed his evaluation notes while maintaining observation through the spotting scope for her final qualification attempt. His documentation would provide official record of performance that challenged program standards and suggested capability that warranted consideration for advanced opportunities beyond normal training progression. The final shot preparation carried additional significance as completion of a perfect qualification record that would establish benchmark performance within program history. 10 consecutive center mass hits at 1,500 meters represented achievement that exceeded documented records for student performance under evaluation conditions. Jackson recognized that he was witnessing something extraordinary within the context of military marksmanship training. His own competitive background provided perspective for understanding how exceptional sustained perfection was at distances where small errors in calculation or technique typically resulted in missed targets and failed qualifications. Environmental factors remained challenging with variable wind patterns that continued to test technical knowledge and adaptability throughout the qualification attempt. The conditions were well within normal parameters for advanced training, but represented complexity that had defeated numerous experienced candidates whose preparation had proven insufficient. Brennan's final shot preparation maintained the systematic approach that had characterized her entire qualification attempt, with environmental assessment and equipment adjustment that reflected growing familiarity with long-range precision requirements despite apparent limitations in documented experience and competition background. The range fell silent except for wind movement and equipment sounds as she prepared for the shot that would complete either perfect qualification performance or demonstrate that sustained excellence under pressure remained challenging even for exceptional marksmen. 10 shots at 1,500 meters with perfect accuracy would establish achievement that exceeded normal program standards. The 10th shot broke with the same clean precision that had characterized Brennan's entire qualification attempt, the report echoing across 1,500 meters of mountain terrain toward a target that would determine whether her performance established new program records or represented the kind of exceptional achievement that redefined capability expectations within advanced military training. Hit, center mass, perfect qualification. Phillips announced the completion of flawless performance that exceeded every documented record within program history. 10 consecutive center mass hits at 1,500 meters represented shooting that challenged the theoretical limits of precision marksmanship under field conditions with standard equipment. The silence that followed his announcement stretched across the range like recognition that something extraordinary had occurred, performance that transcended normal qualification achievement and entered territory reserved for legendary marksmanship demonstrations. The perfect record established benchmark achievement that would influence program standards and training expectations. Phillips immediately coordinated with range personnel to verify target documentation and impact measurement that would provide official confirmation of unprecedented qualification performance. The verification process reflected recognition that exceptional achievement required additional documentation beyond standard evaluation protocols. Davidson sat motionless in his observation position, his expression reflecting complete reassessment of everything he had assumed about capability correlation with experience and training progression. 10 perfect hits at 1,500 meters exceeded his own competitive achievements despite years of dedicated practice and equipment development that represented significant financial and time investment. Jackson shared similar amazement at performance levels that challenged fundamental assumptions about marksmanship development and the relationship between documented experience and demonstrated capability. His combat background provided context for recognizing that what Brennan had accomplished represented ability that exceeded normal military training outcomes. This changes everything we thought we knew about her. Jackson's comment reflected recognition that perfect qualification performance demanded complete recalibration of assumptions about preparation, capability, and potential advancement opportunities within the program structure. Martinez watched from the observation area with growing understanding that his initial dismissive assessment had been completely wrong about someone whose capability exceeded his own achievements despite apparent differences in experience and training background. The perfect qualification forced recognition of exceptional ability that transcended normal evaluation criteria. Kowalski approached Brennan's shooting position with a professional demeanor that accompanied recognition of truly exceptional achievement within military training environments. His expression carried acknowledgement that perfect performance at 1,500 meters represented accomplishment that warranted immediate attention from senior leadership and program administrators. Miss Brennan, your qualification performance exceeds program records and normal advancement criteria. His announcement carried implications that extended beyond routine training progression into territory that required individualized assessment and specialized advancement opportunities that bypass standard curriculum requirements. The perfect qualification created immediate discussion among instructional staff about progression options that could provide appropriate challenge levels for someone whose demonstrated capability exceeded normal program design parameters. Standard advancement progression assumed gradual skill development rather than exceptional performance that challenged training assumptions. Phillips completed his coordination with target verification personnel while documenting performance details that would support recommendations for advancement opportunities beyond normal training curriculum. The perfect record required evaluation by senior leadership who could authorize progression options not covered by standard program protocols. Torres recognized that he had witnessed achievement that would become part of program legend, performance that exceeded normal qualification standards by margins that redefined capability expectations for future candidates. The perfect record established comparison standards that would influence evaluation criteria and training objectives. Range personnel completed impact verification and measurement documentation that confirmed perfect qualification performance, with group measurement that approached theoretical accuracy limits for the distance and equipment involved. The technical verification provided official confirmation of achievement that exceeded documented program records. The qualification results generated immediate discussion about progression opportunities that could challenge someone whose demonstrated capability suggested readiness for evaluations that exceeded normal training curriculum. Perfect performance at 1,500 meters indicated preparation for distances and conditions that challenged even specialized military marksmen. Phillips approached with information about advanced evaluation opportunities that would provide appropriate progression for exceptional capability. Miss Brennan, based on your qualification performance, you're eligible for evaluation at distances that exceed normal program standards. We can arrange assessment at 2,000 meters if you're interested in attempting qualification that challenges specialized marksmen. The offer represented progression beyond standard training curriculum into territory reserved for candidates whose exceptional ability warranted individualized advancement opportunities. 2,000-meter qualification approached distances that challenged the capabilities of specialized military units and competitive champions. Davidson's expression reflected understanding that progression to 2,000 meters represented shooting that exceeded his own aspirations and capabilities despite years of competitive experience. The distance challenged equipment limitations and environmental factors that required advanced technical knowledge and exceptional practical ability. Jackson recognized that 2,000-meter qualification represented opportunity to witness marksmanship that approached legendary performance levels within military training environments. His competitive background provided context for understanding how exceptional such capability would be among even experienced precision shooters. The offer created immediate attention from all personnel present, recognition that they might witness shooting performance that exceeded normal training parameters and entered territory associated with specialized military units and championship-level competitive marksmen. The opportunity represented potential demonstration of capability that redefined program standards. Environmental conditions remained stable with wind patterns that would challenge 2,000-meter precision but remained within parameters that allowed safe evaluation at extended distances. The atmospheric factors were well suited for advanced qualification attempts that tested maximum capability under field conditions. Brennan considered the progression offer with the same composed attention that had characterized her approach to previous challenges, her expression showing neither intimidation by the increased difficulty nor overconfidence about attempting qualification that exceeded normal program parameters and challenged specialized marksmen. The 2,000-meter option represented opportunity to validate exceptional ability at distances where environmental factors became critical variables and equipment limitations tested the boundaries of practical precision shooting under field conditions with standard military equipment and ammunition. I'll attempt the 2,000-meter qualification. Brennan's acceptance of the advanced challenge created immediate coordination requirements among range personnel who had never supervised evaluation at distances that approached the theoretical limits of precision shooting with standard military equipment under field conditions. Phillips coordinated with range control to establish safety boundaries and target placement for 2,000-meter evaluation, a distance that required extended safety considerations and communication protocols that exceeded normal training operations. The coordination process emphasized the extraordinary nature of what was being attempted. 2,000 meters represents shooting that challenges specialized military units and championship competitors. His explanation provided context for understanding that the distance approached maximum effective range for precision engagement and required technical knowledge that exceeded normal training curriculum by significant margins. Davidson watched the preparation activities with recognition that he was about to witness marksmanship that exceeded anything within his competitive experience or military training background. 2,000 meters challenged equipment capabilities and environmental factors that required understanding of external ballistics at levels that approached scientific precision. Jackson shared similar amazement at the progression from diagnostic evaluation to qualification attempts that exceeded normal program parameters and approached distances associated with specialized military applications. The escalation represented advancement that bypassed multiple training levels and standard progression requirements. The target placement at 2,000 meters required verification of safety boundaries that extended well beyond normal range operations, emphasizing the extended trajectories and safety considerations that accompanied precision shooting at distances where projectile energy remained significant throughout extended flight paths. Master Sergeant Phillips coordinated with senior range personnel and program administrators who authorized evaluation beyond standard curriculum requirements. The approval process reflected recognition that exceptional performance sometimes required individualized assessment opportunities that exceeded normal training parameters and institutional protocols. Environmental monitoring became critical at 2,000 meters, where atmospheric conditions affected bullet trajectory in ways that required constant assessment and advanced calculation capabilities. Wind speed, direction, temperature, and barometric pressure became variables that demanded technical knowledge approaching scientific precision for successful engagement. Kowalski provided technical briefing about environmental factors that would affect 2,000-meter precision shooting. Current conditions include variable crosswind up to 12 miles per hour, temperature differential creating thermal layering, and atmospheric pressure that will affect trajectory calculation beyond standard ballistic tables. The environmental complexity emphasized why 2,000-meter shooting challenged even specialized marksmen whose training included advanced ballistic calculation and environmental assessment techniques. The technical requirements exceeded basic marksmanship training and entered territory that required specialized education and extensive practical experience. Martinez observed the preparation activities with growing recognition that he was witnessing training progression that exceeded normal program design and approach capabilities associated with military specialists and competitive champions. The 2,000-meter attempt represented shooting that challenged fundamental assumptions about practical marksmanship limitations. Torres shared similar amazement at progression that had moved from initial skepticism about basic qualifications to observation of evaluation attempts that challenged the boundaries of precision shooting under field conditions. The escalation represented capability demonstration that redefined understanding of exceptional performance within training environments. Range personnel completed target verification and communication setup for extended distance evaluation that required coordination with multiple safety and support elements. The technical requirements reflected the complexity of supervising precision shooting at distances where normal range operations required modification and additional safety protocols. Phillips returned with environmental data and ballistic calculation assistance that would support 2,000-meter evaluation. The technical support reflected recognition that successful engagement at this distance required knowledge and calculation assistance that exceeded individual capability even among experienced marksmen. The ballistic calculation for 2,000 meters requires compensation for significant bullet drop, wind drift effects that vary throughout projectile flight path, and atmospheric factors that affect trajectory in ways that demand advanced understanding of external ballistics and environmental physics principles. His explanation emphasized the technical complexity that distinguished 2,000-meter shooting from shorter distance precision work. The calculation requirements approached levels that challenged computer modeling and required understanding of ballistic principles that exceeded normal military training curriculum. Davidson recognized that the calculation complexity alone exceeded his own technical knowledge despite years of competitive shooting and ballistic study. The environmental factors at 2,000 meters created variables that required advanced education and practical experience that few marksmen possessed. Jackson's expression reflected understanding that 2,000-meter precision shooting represented capability that approached the theoretical limits of what was possible with standard equipment under field conditions. The distance challenged both equipment limitations and human capability in ways that required exceptional ability. The target at 2,000 meters appeared as barely detectable reference point even with maximum magnification, requiring visual identification and aiming precision that challenged optical equipment and human vision capabilities. Successful engagement would demand accuracy that eliminated margin for error in any aspect of technique or calculation. Brennan completed her equipment setup with the same methodical approach that had characterized previous qualifications, though the 2,000-meter distance required scope adjustments and calculation processes that tested technical knowledge beyond anything covered in standard training curriculum or basic ballistic education. Phillips positioned himself at primary spotting equipment that had been supplemented with additional optical systems and calculation support necessary for evaluation at distances that challenged normal training capabilities. The technical setup reflected the extraordinary nature of what was being attempted. Environmental conditions remained stable within parameters that allowed safe evaluation, though the wind patterns and atmosphere factors would test technical knowledge and adaptation capability at levels that challenged even experienced precision marksmen whose training included advanced ballistic calculation and environmental assessment. The 2,000-meter qualification represented opportunity to witness shooting that approached legendary performance levels within military training environments, capability that would establish benchmark achievement and redefine understanding of exceptional marksmanship under field conditions with standard equipment. The first shot at 2,000 meters broke with precision that carried across the extended distance toward a target that challenged the theoretical limits of standard equipment and human capability under field conditions. The extended flight time created suspense that stretched across several seconds before impact detection became possible through magnified observation systems. Hit. Center mass. Phillips announced confirmation that defied every assumption about practical limitations and challenged understanding of what was possible with standard military equipment under field conditions. The impact represented precision that exceeded theoretical expectations and entered territory reserved for legendary marksmanship demonstrations. Absolute silence followed the confirmation as observers processed information that challenged fundamental assumptions about capability limits and training progression within advanced military programs. The successful engagement at 2,000 meters represented achievement that redefined benchmark standards and practical expectations. Davidson sat motionless, his expression reflecting complete recalibration of everything he understood about marksmanship capability and the relationship between experience and performance. The center mass hit at 2,000 meters exceeded anything within his competitive background despite years of dedicated training and equipment development. Jackson's reaction carried similar amazement, mixed with professional recognition that he had witnessed achievement that approached mythical status within precision shooting communities. His combat experience provided context for understanding how extraordinary successful engagement at this distance represented within practical marksmanship applications. "This is impossible." Martinez spoke the words that reflected collective understanding among observers whose own training experiences provided context for recognizing that 2,000-meter precision exceeded normal capability parameters and approached performance levels associated with legendary marksmen and specialized military applications. Phillips immediately coordinated verification procedures for impact documentation that would provide official confirmation of achievement that exceeded program records and challenged institutional understanding of practical marksmanship limitations under field conditions with standard equipment and training progression. Brennan's second shot maintained the systematic preparation approach that had characterized her entire evaluation process. Though the technical complexity of 2,000-meter precision required calculation and environmental assessment that tested knowledge beyond standard training curriculum and basic ballistic education. Hit center mass. The confirmation extended her perfect record at a distance that challenged experienced marksmen and specialized military units. 2 consecutive center mass hits at 2,000 meters represented sustained precision that exceeded random success and validated exceptional capability under demanding field conditions. Kowalski approached with recognition that perfect performance at 2,000 meters represented achievement that warranted immediate attention from senior leadership and program administrators whose authority extended to advancement opportunities beyond standard curriculum and normal training progression parameters. Ms. Brennan, your performance exceeds every benchmark within program history and challenges our understanding of capability development within standard training timeframes. His acknowledgement carried implications that extended beyond routine advancement in a territory that required individualized assessment and specialized opportunities. The perfect shooting at 2,000 meters created immediate discussion among instructional staff about documentation and advancement recommendations that could provide appropriate recognition for achievement that redefined program standards and challenged institutional assumptions about capability correlation with experience and training background. Torres watched with growing understanding that he had witnessed marksmanship that would become part of military training legend. Performance that exceeded normal parameters and established comparison standards that would influence future candidate evaluation and program development for years. Phillips completed coordination with senior personnel regarding advancement opportunities and program modifications that could accommodate exceptional capability that exceeded standard curriculum design and challenged normal progression assumptions within advanced military training environments. Range personnel verified impact documentation and measurement data that confirmed sustained precision at distances that challenged theoretical accuracy limits for standard equipment under field conditions. The technical verification provided official confirmation of achievement that exceeded documented military training records. The perfect qualification performance generated immediate consideration of advancement opportunities that included specialized training assignments and evaluation for programs that challenged the capabilities of military precision specialists and competitive champions, whose preparation included years of dedicated development and technical education. Davidson recognized that Brennan's achievement represented capability that exceeded his own aspirations and challenged assumptions about the relationship between documented experience and demonstrated performance under evaluation conditions. The perfect record established benchmark achievement that redefined understanding of exceptional marksmanship. Jackson shared similar recognition that the 2,000-meter qualification represented witnessing something extraordinary within military training environments, performance that approached legendary status and would influence program standards and capability expectations for future candidates and training development. The sustained perfect performance at unprecedented distances created transformation in how everyone present understood capability development and the relationship between apparent experience levels and demonstrated ability under demanding evaluation conditions that challenged even specialized military marksmen. Phillips announced final evaluation results that confirmed perfect qualification at 2,000 meters with group measurement that approached theoretical accuracy limits for the equipment and distance involved. The technical achievement represented precision that exceeded normal program parameters and established new benchmark standards. If this story of unexpected excellence moved you, share your thoughts about your favorite moment, or tell us about a time you witnessed someone young prove all the doubters wrong. The 18-year-old who had arrived with apparent limitations in experience and training background had demonstrated marksmanship that exceeded every program record and challenged fundamental assumptions about capability development within military training environments. Her perfect performance at 2,000 meters established achievement that would influence training standards and capability expectations for decades. Staff Sergeant Kowalski completed documentation that would provide official record of unprecedented achievement and advancement recommendations for specialized opportunities that reflected exceptional capability. The perfect record represented validation of ability that transcended normal training progression and approached legendary status within precision shooting communities. At 18 years old, Brennan had made the shot that shook the military training world, establishing herself as a sniper legend whose perfect performance redefined understanding of exceptional marksmanship and challenged every assumption about the relationship between youth, experience, and extraordinary capability under demanding field conditions.